Everyone thought LeBron James was still the face of the Lakers, but that night's dinner, a missing invitation, and a leaked recording changed everything. Before learning the contents of this secretly leaked recording, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video below. Now if you're ready, let's start the story. It was another hot summer night in Los Angeles. In one of the city's affluent neighborhoods, the windows of a luxurious restaurant known for its elegance and exclusive access by reservation only flickered with soft yellow light. From the outside, it looked like just another ordinary, upscale dinner invitation. But what was happening inside was actually the harbinger of one of the quietest revolutions in Lakers history. There were only 6 people around the table. In the middle stood a bottle of Opus 1, a collector's item, opened especially for the evening. Lakers executive Rob Pelinka, the team's new head coach J.J. Redick, Luka Doncic's agent, and a few strategic advisors, and of course, Luka himself. There was a faint smile on his face. He commanded the table, but he didn't seem very comfortable. Deep down, he seemed to understand. This dinner was not just a celebration, it was also an endorsement. An era was coming to an end, and a new era was officially being announced. But something was missing. Something really important was missing from that table. LeBron James wasn't there, because unfortunately, he hadn't been invited. The next morning, things were proceeding as usual in the sports media. Routine analysis, summer transfer rumors, and young player performances. Everyone seemed as calm as possible, until Nick Wright went live. He opened the program with the usual phrases, but his tense expression did not escape the eyes of attentive viewers. He chose his words carefully. Last night in Los Angeles, a very special dinner was held. This meeting between the Lakers management and Luka Doncic, which at first glance looked like planning for the new season, had much more to it behind the scenes. The cameras turned to Chris Broussard. He was stunned and confused. "Was LeBron there?" he asked. Nick replied without hesitation. No, he wasn't even invited. There was a brief silence in the studio. Broussard furrowed his brow. "Isn't that a little too direct? They should have at least made a gesture. After all, LeBron is still the face of this team, isn't he?" Nick shook his head. "Chris, this isn't a mistake. It's actually a message. The Lakers want to build their future with Luka. LeBron's era is completely over, but instead of saying it outright, they're gradually pushing him into the shadows." The rest of the program continued with this debate. Some defended the Lakers, while others said LeBron deserved respect. However, the real storm broke out on social media after the program. Headlines such as #LeBron uninvited, #Luka takeover, and #Lakers disrespect immediately trended. Sports journalists tried to get inside information, while fans targeted the club. But amid all the noise, only one person remained silent: LeBron James. He had not made a statement or comment. It was said that he had not even picked up his phone. He did not leave the Lakers' facilities, arriving early in the morning and staying late to work out individually. His relationship with the team was now strictly professional. Nothing more, nothing less. Luka, on the other hand, was in the public eye. He was as polite as ever in his brief interviews with the press, but you could see the weight of the pressure he was under in his eyes. "It's a great honor to play with LeBron," he had to say. But everyone knew that the real issue wasn't what he said, but what the Lakers were planning. A few days passed. A video leaked from the Lakers facility hinted at a new storm on the horizon. It was filmed after practice. Luka was smiling on the court, joking with the young players, waving to the media. But a silhouette that entered the frame later caught everyone's attention. In the corner, alone, dribbling the ball, LeBron James. That image was the perfect picture of silence. Amidst all the joy and movement, a giant was left in the shadows. That night, Nick Wright was back in the studio. His words were clearer this time. "This isn't a transition, it's a removal. The Lakers are closing the LeBron chapter, but they're not doing it in front of him. They're doing it behind his back." Chris Broussard, on the other hand, was quite cautious. "Maybe it's just the natural course of time. LeBron is approaching 40. Luka is the future of this league. It may not be a choice, but rather a necessity." Nick bowed his head and remained silent for a few seconds. Then he took a USB flash drive out of his pocket. He stared at the camera. This flash drive contains a recording of the conversation that took place at that dinner. You will hear firsthand what the Lakers have planned for Luka's future, and how LeBron was pushed out of the system. But I have one question. Is it my duty to share these facts with the public, or is it a betrayal? Silence fell over the studio. The broadcast was over, but it felt like the story was just beginning. Other programs were now playing on the screens, but Nick Wright still hadn't moved from his seat. The USB flash drive in front of him may have looked small, but the information it contained was like a bomb, with the power to change the history of the Los Angeles Lakers. In the side studio, Broussard was still trying to take off his headphones. He was nervous. He hadn't really internalized what he had said on air, but he had known one rule for years. In media, timing was as important as the truth. That's why the recording in Nick's hand naturally made him anxious. Could it be true? Yes. But now? Was now the time to reveal it? That evening, when Nick returned to his office, he started listening to the recordings. The sound was quite clear. Pelinka's voice was the first to be heard. "This team is Luka's now. We are eternally grateful to LeBron, but it was time for a change." Then came the words of Coach J.J. Redick. "We are building the system around Luka. A transition role would be appropriate for LeBron. We don't want to break him, but investing in the future is a must." Nick's heart began to beat faster. As the audio file progressed, the words seemed to become clearer. "LeBron will understand. If he accepts it quietly, the process will be easier." And that last sentence came from Luka's manager. "He already knows the truth. Now it's a matter of how the public will find out." The recording was over. Nick stared at the dark screen for a while. It wasn't hard to imagine the storm that the information in his hands would create in the media. But a voice inside him was telling him that he definitely needed to talk to one more person first. The next morning, he knocked on Chris Broussard's door. They sat down in a quiet coffee shop. Nick recited a few sentences from memory. Chris bowed his head, but his eyes were fixed on a single point. "LeBron definitely doesn't deserve this," he said. "But revealing the truth is one thing. Adding fuel to the fire is another." Nick shook his head. "I'm not adding fuel to the fire, Chris. I'm just turning on the light. If the truth is in the dark, it can't be my fault." Chris took a deep breath. "I'm warning you before you air this. If you share this recording, the Lakers' media relations will be completely severed. We'll be hurt along with you. Isn't it broken enough already? Are we still going to take sides in this process that started with LeBron not being invited to dinner?" There was no response. That same evening, the sports world was rocked by an unexpected development. Nick Wright did not share the recording on live TV, of course, but he summarized the content, choosing his words carefully. "A player who has been a hero in this city for years is quietly stepping aside. Management may have announced its new leader, but real leadership is earned on the court. Now it's up to LeBron." After the broadcast, social media exploded once again. Fans were divided into two camps. Some argued that LeBron should step aside, while others were furious at the disrespect shown to him. However, there was another detail that caught the attention of many. Luka Doncic had yet to make a statement. According to reports from inside the facility, Luka was aware of the recording. He had even heard some parts of it himself, but he chose to remain silent. His silence was interpreted in different ways by fans. Some saw it as maturity, others as an escape from responsibility. Meanwhile, LeBron did not want to talk to any members of the media. He just went out on the court, did his training, and left. But the training sessions were starting to look different. LeBron was no longer training individually. He was playing on the same team as Luka. He passed him the ball on every offense and covered his back on every defense. These moves were like a message to those watching. Perhaps it was a silent message, but it was considered to be quite loud. However, one night, another leak occurred that would change everything. Security camera footage had been leaked online. Pelinka, Redick, and Luka were seen entering a private meeting room at the Lakers facility late at night. What stood out in the footage was Luka's facial expression as he left the room. He looked tired, exhausted, and even a little hurt. The footage quickly spread across social media. Comments such as, "Luka can't take the pressure anymore," "LeBron's shadow is too heavy," and "The new king is unhappy," began to flood in. However, the Lakers management remained silent, but the public was no longer just questioning LeBron's silence. They were also questioning Luka's stone-faced expression. And it was at this point that Nick Wright decided to take the final step. On the next show, he looked at the audience at the beginning of the broadcast and said, "Are you finally ready to hear the truth?" After a moment's pause, he turned the camera to his computer screen. The audience was left alone with words they were hearing for the first time. Of course, there was no turning back now. Nick Wright's voice was different from previous broadcasts. There was no trace of his cheerful tone. He chose his words carefully, and the tension grew along with the sound waves appearing on the screen. The first recording was of Rob Pelinka. The sound was clear. "Luka is ready to carry this team. LeBron is now a figurehead, but he needs to understand that. Unfortunately, we can't manage this transition without taking him out of the spotlight." Then JJ Redick's voice was heard. He was calmer, but just as determined. "Giving LeBron the leadership role will slow down Luka's development. We need to mentor him. We need to handle this quietly. Otherwise, the public will turn against us." The last voice on the recording belonged to Luka's agent. His words were direct and harsh. "I don't think LeBron will resist this transition, but the fans are emotional. We need to control the narrative. Luka is the star of the future. This will be LeBron's silent farewell." There was a brief silence on the air. Nick closed the file and looked back at the camera. "This was sent to me privately, but I think it's time the public knows the truth." Chris Broussard was there with him, live on air. His eyes were uncertain. The expression on his face was a kind of bitter acceptance that came with years of experience. "These truths are painful, but in this league, it's not emotions that win. It's strategies. The Lakers management made a choice. Whether it's right or wrong is debatable, but it's a very conscious transition." However, minutes after the broadcast, social media was ablaze. Fans were going crazy. Comments such as "betrayal of LeBron," "transition without even saying goodbye to the king," and "Luka crowned under pressure" filled the screens. The Lakers club did not make an official statement, but according to information from behind the scenes, crisis meetings had already begun inside. The management was silent. However, silence from the outside was no longer enough. That night, LeBron shared only a black square on his social media account. There was a single sentence underneath it. "Did you think you could silence me?" This post instantly reached tens of millions of views. It became one of the most shared player reactions in NBA history. However, LeBron's post seemed less like a comeback and more like a sign of reckoning. The next morning, there was an unusual atmosphere at the Lakers' training facility. Security had been tightened, and media access was restricted. Inside, training continued quietly, but some things didn't seem the same anymore. Luka Doncic tried to pass the ball to LeBron several times during practice, but LeBron turned away each time. They locked eyes while in a defensive position. There seemed to be a question in Luka's eyes, but there was no answer in LeBron's. The silence carried over to the locker room. The team had begun to divide into factions. The young players gathered around Luka, while the veterans naturally stayed by LeBron's side. Coach JJ Redick's authority had been undermined in an instant. Luka was at the center of the system he had planned, but the heart of the team was definitely beating elsewhere. The media quickly picked up on this division. Reporters rushed to Luka with microphones as he left practice. They pressured him to break his silence. Luka stood still, took a deep breath, and looked at the camera. "LeBron is a legend to me. It is a great honor to play with him. But if we want to build a future with this team, we have to leave the past behind. It wasn't my decision, but now I have to carry that responsibility." With these words, he poured gasoline on the fire. LeBron's fans rose to their feet. "Leave the past behind?" shouted comments across all platforms. For the first time in Lakers history, the team's two stars were openly at odds with each other. That night, Nick Wright took the microphone for the last time. "This is not just a transition. This is one of the biggest power struggles in NBA history, and those who remain silent are the ones making the loudest noise. All eyes are on LeBron now, because if he speaks, it won't just be the Lakers that are shaken to their core. It will be the entire NBA. The lights in the studio slowly dimmed. Only one scene remained. Because LeBron James was finally getting ready to speak, the silence had lasted for days. At the Lakers' facilities, members of the press had almost lost hope. A heavy silence reigned over the team. Coach Redick had strictly forbidden the players from speaking to the media, and management had yet to make an official statement. But that morning, everything changed in an instant. LeBron James announced that he would be broadcasting live on his social media accounts. With just one sentence, "I wasn't given a voice, but I'm going to speak." Within minutes, tens of millions of people were waiting for the broadcast. ESPN, TNT, social media platforms, and even the international press had made this broadcast their headline. This was not just a statement. It was a statement of intent. When the broadcast began, the screen opened with a black background. The camera was stationary. LeBron was not wearing glasses. His face was clearly visible. There were no filters in the background, just a plain background, and in the foreground a voice that had been silenced throughout his life. "I remained silent because sometimes silence is the loudest voice for me," he said. His voice was quite calm, but the hurt inside him was clearly palpable. He stared directly into the camera. "This city embraced me. I sweated blood for this jersey and led the team. I also trained young players and brought championships. But I know that everything has its time. However, people want to know when their time is up. With respect, with transparency and face-to-face." The muscles in his face twitched slightly. "I love Luka very much. I have always believed in his potential. I still do. But I have a few words for those who forget the past when talking about the future of this team. The future does not build itself. It is built by the past, and I am the name of that past." After a few seconds of silence, he continued, "Of course, I'm not afraid to step aside, but I don't like it when decisions are made quietly behind my back." If this transition had been discussed and shaped together, perhaps a much stronger foundation could have been laid. But now, everyone is talking, and no one is taking any responsibility. LeBron made one last statement before ending the broadcast. "You cannot decide how this story will end. Watch what I do on the court and see." After the broadcast, the league was shaken. Players, coaches, media representatives, and even former stars sent messages of support for LeBron's statement. Expressions such as, "A man who deserves respect," "A leader with a voice," and "Legends don't say goodbye like this," flooded the sports world. Things had become much more difficult for Luka Doncic. The questions asked at the press conference had suddenly changed. It was no longer about being the star of the future. Now he was being asked questions like, "Will you respond to LeBron?" When Luka took the microphone, there was an unusual look of tension on his face. He thought for a few seconds and then spoke. "Of course, I respect what LeBron said. No one can deny what he has contributed to this team and this city. But I'm not replacing anyone. I'm just doing my job here." That was all he could say. This response fueled further debate in the press. Some defended Luka, saying he was too young to carry such responsibility. Others found his words inadequate and evasive, especially after LeBron's last sentence. Because LeBron was getting ready to take the court, the Lakers had organized an internal tournament on the preseason media day. The team matches were open to fans. This event was intended to bring the players together and increase fan excitement. But this time, everyone was expecting a different matchup. LeBron James and Luka Doncic were not on the same team. They were going to play against each other. The arena was already packed. The fans had taken their seats, but their eyes were fixed on only two people. During warm-ups, LeBron was quietly working in the corner. Luka, meanwhile, was tying his shoelaces while glancing at him out of the corner of his eye. Then the starting whistle blew. Luka's team started the first attack. He carried the ball, took the screen, and headed for the basket. But a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, slowing his steps. It was LeBron. He couldn't get past him. He was stuck in defense. He passed the ball, and the play broke down. On the next play, LeBron got the ball. Luka was facing him this time. He played with his back turned, made physical contact, headed toward the basket, and finished. The arena erupted in cheers. But this was more than just a basket, because it was a message. At the end of the day, it wasn't about who won the tournament, but who came out on top, and everyone agreed. LeBron wasn't just an aging legend. He was still the only force capable of changing the game. That night, a video went viral on social media. It was the sequence of LeBron's defs against Luka. It was shared with the following caption: "Some shadows never disappear, even when the sun rises." And now, it was time for the final curtain. That morning, there was a different kind of silence at the Lakers clubhouse. Neither the fans nor anyone from management was speaking, but everyone was waiting for an explanation. And this time, the person who would make the announcement would be the last to speak. As always, LeBron James had played the leading role on many stages up to this point. But this stage was very different. This time, it wasn't just about the scores. The discussion had begun about whether an era would continue or not. Nick Wright, as always, chose his words carefully at the beginning of the program. As in previous episodes, he did not use phrases that would directly provoke conflict. This time, he spoke as if he were a viewer. "We are trying to understand what we are part of here. This is not a generational war. This is a battle of narratives. LeBron is not willing to let someone else write his story, and maybe for the first time, he's fighting with his words instead of on the court." Broussard was silent. He hadn't spoken since the beginning of the program. But halfway through the broadcast, he fixed his eyes on the camera and said, "Some leadership isn't about words. It's about stance. That's exactly what LeBron is doing. And Luka needs to understand that. This isn't a war, it's a test." At the same time, there was an emergency meeting at the Lakers headquarters. Pelinka, Redick, and the media relations team realized they couldn't remain silent any longer in the face of the back-to-back reactions. The transition they had planned had turned into a fire they thought they had under control. The fans were divided. Communication within the team had broken down, and the media was completely divided into camps. But most importantly, even Luka Doncic was struggling to carry this burden. In his post-practice statement, he spoke for the first time without going on the defensive. "I'm not against LeBron. I never have been, but it's hard to walk in his shadow. No matter what I do, it's not enough. Maybe I need to learn to deal with that." His words were short, honest, and just as hurtful. That sentence was the moment when the youngest star in Lakers history stumbled for the first time under the heaviest crown. And at that very moment, LeBron stepped back into the spotlight. That weekend, a surprise was announced for the special season opener at Staples Center. LeBron James would personally organize the event and deliver the opening speech. The media announced it as the event of the year. Tickets sold out in hours. Fans, players, retired legends, young stars, and journalists were all going to be there. When the lights dimmed, the stands fell silent. A spotlight shone on the center of the stage. LeBron James walked slowly toward it. He did not have a microphone in his hand. The sound system was turned on. He waited a moment before speaking. Then these words came out of his mouth. "This jersey is not just colors. This jersey carries every drop of sweat, every broken finger, and every morning practice that started at 5 o'clock. In fact, this jersey doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to all people." The arena began to applaud quietly. LeBron continued, "The future is not written today. The game is played, won, or lost. And then it is written. Luka has almost everything it takes to be on this team, but it takes more than talent to carry this team. That's definitely not enough. It takes shoulders. And that burden is not easy to carry, but I believe he can do it, because I truly believe he will never let this flag fall." The spotlight turned to the other side of the stage. Luka was standing and applauding. Then he got up. He walked over to LeBron. He took the microphone from his hand and said, "I'm ready to carry this team. But first, I want to thank you for teaching me what this jersey means." The two stars embraced each other. The arena rose to its feet. That night, there was only one photo circulating on social media. LeBron and Luka stood side by side in front of the Lakers logo, their hands clasped together in the air. Underneath was the caption, "This isn't a transition, it's a legacy." What happened there was not just a change of players, it was the transfer of an understanding. LeBron had made a silent revolution there. Without ever raising his voice, he had closed one era and opened another with honor and pride. And so the story was complete. But there are some stories that continue to be told even after they are complete, because some shadows leave behind not only darkness, but also light. Some leaders, even when they leave the field, leave the spirit of the game there forever. Was this a respectful farewell or a silent betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments and send this story to a friend. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.